take you back a little bit to your playing days. It wasn't that long ago, was it? Let's not do the math.
Feels
you're
like
still,
it sometimes.
You're still a couple of years younger than I am, but so we won't do any math. But your first year you played under head coach Dennis Green, and then he left. And your father was an assistant coach, and he came very close to getting that job. In fact, I read, correct me, David, if I'm wrong, that he had met with the president. They had scheduled the team meeting. They were talking about when they were going to hold the press conference. He was going to be the head coach at Stanford, and in the last second, he lost it to Bill Walsh. How aware were you at the time, because you were a player here, of how close he was, and how difficult was it for you to see him get that close and then have to experience the disappointment of not getting it?
Everybody on the team knew. It was a special time for me because I knew how much my dad wanted to be a head coach. I knew how prepared he was, how much respect he had, not just on our team, but in the entire profession. A very well-respected, hard-working coach. He was very smart, knows business inside and out. So that was I was excited for him. And then here comes one of the best coaches of all time. And how do you handle that? And that to me showed me a lot about who my dad was, how well he handled that and understood that Stanford had a chance to hire one of the best coaches in history. And my dad took it graciously, understood it, communicated with Bill, stayed in touch with Bill periodically. Bill actually even offered him a job to stay with him because that's how much respect Bill had for my dad also. But in this profession, coaches and players, we're going to be hit with adversity. And the biggest thing is how we handle that adversity. And my dad was a great example of that.
Did he handle it better than you did maybe at the time? You're younger, and the emotion of knowing that disappointment that he's experienced.
I think I was caught in between so many different things because I was a 49er fan. I was a Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and Steve Young fan, Roger Craig and all those guys, all those Super Bowls. So I was caught as a fan and in awe of Bill Walsh, like we all were, and between also wanting the best for my dad. But knowing that he went to the Minnesota Vikings and was going to have a great career beyond that, going back to the NFL, I was excited for him there. So I was torn for a while, but I think it all worked out for all of us.
So we fast forward 19 years later, you get the job as the head coach at Stanford. And shortly after you get the job, you and your dad have a quiet and kind of an emotional moment in your office. What was that like?
It was eerie to a certain degree because anyone who's gotten a big job knows as soon as you get it, there are a million things going through your mind. You know, you're semi-prepared, you're never completely prepared. You know, press conference is going to happen and team meeting, and here's what we have to do. I have to go on the road recruiting. Here's all those things that we need to do. And then my dad comes in my office, just became my office, and the two of us closed the door, and it became real. And I saw the pride in his eyes, and I saw how emotional he was, and of course I was emotional also. And I wasn't emotional for me, I was emotional for him, because now that I'm a father, I completely understand it. You want great things for your children, and when you see them have success, you have more pride in their success than you have in your own.
Best coaching advice he ever gave you?
Coach with your own personality. It's the biggest thing he ever said to me, which was be yourself, which everybody says, but it's so prophetic because players respond to sincerity. And that's why different personalities work with different coaches. Some guys, they're yellers and screamers. If that's just who they are, when players accept them, that's how they communicate, that's who they are, that's fine. It's the guys that are trying to be like somebody else, I think that the players start to tune out. But I'm consistent. I am who I am. The players know what upsets me. The players know what makes me excited for them. They know the standards. They know where the lines are. And as long as I'm just me, then we have a chance to have everything on the table and be who we want to be as a team.
Your dad had an extraordinary career, an extraordinary life in football, 4 decades, 14 stops, twice an NFL finalist with the Eagles and the Chiefs. We've come a long way in terms of minorities getting opportunities to be a head coach. Not far enough, certainly, but we've made some progress. But is there any doubt in your mind that if your dad was not an African American, given the time that he was coming up, that at some point, on some level, he would have been a head coach?
That's such a hard question to answer, because the other thing that I learned through this process, really from my dad and conversations with my dad as well as other people, when you are the decision maker, it's on your shoulders to pick the right person for you, right person for your franchise or your university, and all factors come into it. And if that one factor was changed, whereas my father's race, who knows what would have happened. But I've also learned never to blame anybody for what they choose and who they choose, especially now that I'm in a position to hire people. I have to hire the perfect fit for whatever position I have open, and it doesn't have to be based on one thing. It's going to be based on a lot of things, but I have to feel like that's the right person. So I know there could be racial factors that come up. For me, though, whoever's making that decision is doing the best they can for the position that they're hiring.
A few weeks ago, we aired an episode with Charlie Strong and had a similar conversation. And it always, I don't know if funny is the right word about this, David, but I never understood the idea, like people are saying, he has to do well so other minorities will get a chance. I mean, if he's horrible, that doesn't mean that the next guy is horrible just because they're of the same race. And I know a lot of that has been put on you as well. And I saw, a quote from you where you said, I'm not ready to be a flag bearer. People want to give you that flag, but you said, I'm not ready to be a flag bearer. Why the reluctance in that regard?
Yeah, I caution our players also sometimes if you're going to stand up for a cause, make sure it's a worthy cause, but don't let causes come in the way of you doing your job. I understand the way that I'm looked at. I talk to a lot of young African-American coaches who call me, who ask for advice. Some people ask me questions to help somebody else that they know. And I understand I have a responsibility to do that to a certain degree. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we are successful here to the best of our abilities here. And if that ends up being positive for somebody else, then that's great. I think it's tough sometimes when you try to wave your flag about something and lose sight of what you're here to do. And I'm here to have guys graduate and play great football.